Most credit cards outside the US suck. However, there are some interesting options, especially from some interesting fintech companies that are coming out. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most interesting and premium ones, Revolut Ultra. My name is Sean, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherwin. Today on the Credit Card BS podcast, we're going to be talking about the Revolut Ultra card. Now, this is a card that's only available in the UK. Revolut actually has a number of tiers of programs and cards. Ultra is your highest tier, and that's the only one we're going to be focusing on today, but the other ones may be of interest to you as well. Now, this is not technically a credit card. It's a premium prepaid / reloadable card. So there's not going to be like interest charges or a credit limit. It's basically like a ultra powered debit card that has additional credit card like benefits. Now, this is not a free card. It costs £45 per month, pounds as the British currency. That comes out to around $728 US dollars per year. So not cheap by any means. And honestly, I think more US credit cards should start marketing their annual fees, monthly fees, because they seem a lot less daunting. But it's actually decently expensive subscription if you think about it on an annual sense, around $728. So Sean, what are some of the interesting perks that this card provides?
Yes, so I think what we're going to see is this is a very untraditional card. We're not seeing typical credits to specific merchants like we see in the US. So like off the bat, one of the main marketed perks is 3 gigabytes of international data per month. This seems like an interesting perk. Now, from someone from the US, this seems really bizarre. If you're from the UK, though, keep in mind that it's much more common to go internationally, right? Because you can just take a quick train ride and then now you're in like a new country, right? You take the channel, you're in France, for example. In the US, let's say you live in Texas, unless you're going to Mexico, it's pretty difficult to go anywhere internationally. So this could be much more applicable to someone living in the UK. This is interesting of a first perk, but not applicable to super applicable given the cost of this card. The more interesting kind of one of the main perks is you have lounge access, airport lounge access, just like on a US card, via Dragon Pass. Sherwin, I'm not too familiar in the footprint or the coverage of Dragon Pass. Are you familiar with it by any chance?
I think it's fairly similar to Priority Pass, to be honest. Yeah.
That makes sense. I've seen most of the lounges that I've gone to that have accepted Priority Pass. There's also a little sign that says Dragon Pass. So usually with these type of lounge networks, right, it's not going to be something ultra premium. Like it's not going to be a first class lounge quality or anything like that.
Right.
But Priority, it's essentially like a Priority Pass membership, which, is on a lot of very expensive US cards. So I think for people, this could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, they also give free ATM withdrawals up to £2,000 per month globally without fees. I think this is probably pretty interesting for people who travel. It's very useful to get cash from an ATM if your card doesn't have fees, because you'll get better exchange rate from Visa or MasterCard, as opposed to like a currency exchange counter where you will get scammed for the most part. But to me, this is not that interesting, at least in the US, because like Schwab and Fidelity already give free ATM withdrawals unlimited, actually. And they even reimburse the ATM fees altogether, regardless of your account balance. So this is not a super unique perk, at least in the US, but maybe it is in the UK.
Yes, I agree. I think, for anyone that's from the US watching this, it makes a lot more sense to just get a free Schwab card. So another interesting perk, which, this is something that whenever a perk like this is marketed, the first thing you should be doing is looking at the terms and conditions, because there's always a million exceptions and it's always a big headache to deal with. But there's a insurance on this card of like a trip cancellation insurance. And this insurance sounds like it's not just for like airline delays and things like that and like the traditional normal insurance. But essentially how it works is you get up to 70% back as long as you book your ticket more than 72 hours in advance, and then you cancel 24 hours of departure. I'm sure there's a whole host of various exceptions and conditions for this to be applied. I will say, generally on a card, I try to not factor the insurance in too much as if I'm going to get the card or not, mainly because of this exact reason. If there's always going to be exceptions, and it can always be the case that the one time you need the freaking insurance, it's like, no, it was a delay that's not covered by the insurance, or it was this carrier that's an exception. So any type of thing like that, I would always be very wary of. However, I think it could be worth looking into, especially because if this is a more generous insurance compared to what other cards are offered in the UK, or even maybe some cards in the US, usually insurances should be considered like a safety net and not you shouldn't necessarily rely on them, more as a backup if something pops up.
Yeah, my understanding though is that for this insurance, it's less like the traditional US ones where like something bad has had to happen that caused you to cancel. This one is more like you voluntarily cancel. You can get 70% back as long as you fall within the term. So it's a broader insurance, I guess. Additionally,
It
with this
seems interesting,
card,
yeah.
yeah, you get various random subscription inclusions ranging from Uber One and ClassPass and Masterclass to Tinder Gold, WeWork, which gives you 3 credits per month, and Perplexity Pro, as well as many others that we're not going to cover today. What do you make of this, Sean? Is this just a gigantic hodgepodge of marketing things?
So yes, yes, it is. Now, the thing I will say is the way I'm viewing these subscriptions is this is like the equivalent to the US cards having a merchant-based credit, okay? So I think this is something where I'm not gonna like hate on this concept. I don't dislike this concept that much actually, especially when these are subscriptions. At least a few of them are fairly like mainstream subscriptions, such as like Uber One, WeWork, things like that, where like I could see people getting tangible value out of it. So I find it that this is an interesting type of, in theory, way to help justify the card. Personally, not many of these subscriptions I would actively go out of my way to get the card for. The most interesting one to hear from for me is WeWork, just because getting a few credits per month, being able to go into a WeWork, I'm not exactly sure how their credit system works. I remember researching though a bit about WeWork because I was considering getting a membership, and I know like the cheapest communal only space membership is about $200 a month, but that only gets you access to about 1/4 of the locations. An all access membership is $300 a month. That comes with some amount of credits. Usually the credits are like for booking conference rooms and things like that. I'm not sure how it works here in terms of accessing the communal space. However, this is interesting. I think this could be useful for people. And I think that in theory, if you had a card that had a collection of subscriptions that was useful enough to you as the card holder, especially ones that you either were highly likely to or already purchased organically, then I think you can use this as reasonable justification to offset any membership fee. So personally, these are like subscriptions I would say are not too valuable to me. However, I think these have a not insignificant value attached to them to where I would consider their value in my calculation of a card, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit random for me personally. I think if this were like a lower annual fee card, maybe it'd be fun to try it out. But at something that clocks in around $730 per year, I would expect something a bit more tangible with these credits, to be honest. At least some kind of clear travel credit, some kind of clear credit where it pertains to hotels or airlines and this fixed number per year where I can kind of check off. I think this counts toward the annual fee. This is more just like a subscription hodgepodge that I don't know how to value. So personally, I think if I'm going to be paying $730 per year, I would expect better credits, to be very honest. But maybe this is very standard in the UK. I don't know.
You know what I just made the connection to? This is very similar to Founders Card. Are you
Well,
familiar
yes.
with Founders Card? Yes, it is like
Yes.
very similar where you pay. Founders Card isn't even a credit card or any type of banking product at all. It is a purely membership fee, which again, in theory, I don't necessarily have a problem with it because it combines the whole like coupon book logic I've explained in other videos where you take this brand where you can get all these people paying this money. These brands need marketing. They provide it at a reduced cost to this larger brand. It can, in theory, work out to everyone's advantage. But yeah, it is very similar to Founders Card.
Yeah. So what do you all think of Revolut Ultra? Is it something you would get? Let us know down in the comments below. And Sean, why don't you plug our membership and our Discord?
Yes, if you want to get even more exclusive content from us, stuff that we literally cannot talk about publicly, look at the join button below where you can look at our memberships. If you're a platinum member or higher, you get access to exclusive videos. And if you want to connect with an elite group of award travelers and credit card enthusiasts entirely for free, check out the Traveling Discord group at the link in the description. You will learn a ton, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.